Two people trapped in an hour and a half doesn't sound that interesting, but you know what? In Stalker it is. Let's talk about that movie now. Hey everyone, this is David Starr from Watcher Pass. Today I'm talking about Stalker, which comes to theaters and on demand on March 31st, 2023. It is a new indie thriller about two people stuck in an elevator and one of them might be dangerous. Now, two people stuck in an elevator talking for an hour and a half doesn't sound that interesting, but they do a really great job in this film. My hot take is, look, I think this is kind of between a watch and a rent. It's more it's higher on the watch side of things, so I'm going to go with the watch. There's so much about this film that I love. It just is a very well done indie thriller. I love the writing. I love the characters. I loved kind of the way that everything built. There were so many nuances that they threw into the script and the story and the things that you learn that it really kept it interesting, even though you are essentially watching two people for an hour and a half have a discussion. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and go into the ending. As you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the ending section. So if you don't want to know what happens in the ending, I would turn it off then. But before that, you can keep watching. I will keep it vague and I will let you know when I get into spoilers. So in Stalker, you have two people. You've got Rose, played by Sophie Skelton, and Daniel, played by Stuart Brennan. They are at a hotel. They get into a freight elevator because the main elevator is out of order. And on the way up, it stops. Now, not a big situation, but you find out that Rose is involved in a movie that has had some strange occurrences happen. And Daniel is also on that movie. And as they talk, it seems like they know a little bit more about what is happening than you would originally guess, and that might turn into something dangerous. So, things I liked about this movie. The first, look, this is the first thing I noticed. This is the first thing I loved. The writing. This is such a well-written film. There were so many moments like that just made me smile. There's so many things that happen where there's double meaning, where there's like lines that one person says that could mean one thing innocuously, but one thing if you look at it some other way. And there's so many little like slip ups or not slip ups that happen that kind of keep you guessing what is going on. It is such a wonderfully written film that I just loved hearing it. And I just loved hearing the story and hearing this dialogue. And that is also in part because of the second thing I love, which is the acting. I loved Sophie Skelton and Stuart Brennan and their kind of like interplay, their back and forth that happened during this film. I really loved how their characters had a little bit more depth and how you were kind of constantly guessing like what was going on. Like, look, the film is Stalker. There is a woman and a man in an elevator. You kind of know who the antagonist is going to be, but the way that the characters kind of interact, sometimes it feels like one person has the upper hand, other person has an upper hand, and it kind of goes back and forth. And that is partly the writing and partly just the performances that you get. The fact that they can deliver these lines and keep it interesting really helps to kind of draw you in and keep you entertained for this hour and a half. The third thing I loved is the setup. This is just a great setup for an indie film. It's a small cast, it's a small location. They do a good job of kind of like making this elevator feel small at times, but also big and like changing up the angle so it's not just them in the same situation the entire time. They're in the elevator for the whole time, but things happen. They try new things. They try to like get out. They try to make contact. There's enough going on that it helps to keep the story moving, but also it's a great setup for a film that has great writing because you've got two people who are just stuck in this elevator and have to talk. And that is a perfect landscape for this film to happen in. And the last thing I love that's kind of related to everything I've already said is the slow burn. Like this film has a very slow startup, and part of that is because you're still feeling the characters out for a very long time because there's so many things that they say that could have extra meaning. You're learning more about what's happening on the film, and it's not really overt. Like a lot of the things that you learn are kind of like slip ups or things that they say, or that one person will say something and the other person will like catch it or like hone in on it. And that really helps to kind of keep this film interesting and keep you wanting to learn more about the characters. So I thought that it does a really good job in all those aspects, and I really enjoyed watching it. So things I didn't love as much, and both of these, they're not minor, but they didn't detract from my enjoyment of the overall film. The first, there are some emotional turns that happen. Some of the characters change relatively quickly, and I think that's to help keep the momentum going so you don't have like a monotone type conversation the entire time. You'll have some ups and downs during it, but sometimes it felt a little bit kind of, I don't know, too abrupt from the previous scene. Rose has this happen where she becomes upset pretty quickly after like it seems like her and Daniel are kind of finding the middle ground, and it felt like it was too quick of a turn. Now I don't know, maybe that was by design just to keep it up and down. Maybe that was, Rose's character trying to keep him off balance. I don't know, but it did feel too abrupt, and it happened with Daniel's character occasionally as well. But like I said, not a big deal. It's it didn't detract from my enjoyment of the film. It just felt like a little bit too abrupt of a change. And the last thing I didn't love is, I'll call it like the big turn, the big reveal at the end. It felt a little bit, I don't know, like I didn't really understand what all was happening. I understand what happened, but some of the motivations didn't feel fully fleshed out for the exact sequence of things that happened. So I'm going to go into that just a little bit, but just if you don't want to know about the ending, if you don't want to know about this big turn, then I would turn this off now and just know that Stalker is coming to theaters and on demand on March 31st, 2023. You can check it out either in theaters or in the comfort of your own home. I definitely think you should check it out. It's an interesting film, and it's amazing to see how much fun you can have just watching two people talk. So um going into the ending, so as I said, Rose and Daniel both work on this movie that is being filmed, and Rose is a step in because the earlier actor Alice mysteriously disappeared, and you don't know why, you don't know what happened. There's all these rumors that they talk about during their conversation in the elevator, like maybe the director did it, maybe something happened with him, maybe like someone had it out for her. But it seems to work out because after Alice disappeared, Rose stepped in, and Rose like became the new star. And so it's a horrible situation, but she is ultimately benefiting from it. Now, as they're going back and forth, you find out that Daniel is a camera operator, a B-roll camera operator on the set. So he is basically behind the camera all the time, constantly filming, which does make it the kind of the perfect occupation for someone that is interested in filming people both professionally and privately. So Daniel kind of starts at a disadvantage there. Now, as they go back and forth, you find that little hints are dropped here and there that of things that might happen. Like Daniel has some slip ups when he's talking. He says, that Alice was, or that Rose is a better actor than Alice was, and she says, "You said was," like implying that Alice is no longer there, which I love. Like I love the little things like that. My favorite line in this film was they're talking about each other early on when they're just kind of like making small talk, and Rose mentions that she's a people watcher, and I was like, so am I. And this is like sly but friendly way that was just perfect. I loved that little like hint there. But as this is going on, you find out that Daniel does seem to be a stalker, like at least obsessed with these people, these individuals in the film. He was obsessed with Alice, it seems, and he was obsessed with Rose. Although you don't 100% get that. Like the film doesn't ever have like a whodunit type of moment. It's heavily implied, and you can kind of tell what's going on, I think, but they never fully get that. But it seems like Daniel was kind of obsessed with Alice. He has a little bag that has all of the Alice videos on memory cards, which you're like, okay, that's creepy. But then he's like, oh no, I gave this to the police, and like you'd think that they would have found something on there. They didn't find anything. So there are these little things where it's like something will happen and you're like, oh, that's really creepy, but then there is an innocuous explanation for it. It does seem that Daniel was stalking Alice and he was stalking Rose, but does that mean that Daniel killed her? I don't believe so, because then what happens eventually is, as Rose and Daniel are kind of becoming more friendly, like Rose is definitely kind of like trying to pick away at his exterior and get him to be kind of more friendly, especially because they're in this elevator by themselves, and that could be a bad situation or a good situation. She eventually gives him a drink, and so Daniel finally drinks. She's been drinking all night, and so Daniel finally drinks, and then he passes out, and he wakes up, and he is now tied in this elevator. He's got duct tape over his mouth, his wrists are tied. So we find out that it seems like Rose is a little bit more involved in this situation. And I think what happened is that, so Rose, when she's first kind of like muttering to herself about the situation when Daniel is waking up, she talks about the publicity this will be, like, what publicity this will do to the film. Like a bereaved star delivers like an amazing performance in a movie. And so I think she has been kind of playing this and saw that Daniel could be kind of a scapegoat, or she wanted to punish Daniel for being like stalkerish. So it seems like what you find out as they're going back and forth and as they're talking is that Daniel was definitely stalking Alice, but Rose kind of knew that. She was watching him watch her. And it seems like she probably killed Alice somehow and then disposed of the body and appears to have buried it near Daniel's house to kind of set him up. And then when she realized that now Daniel is watching her, she kind of encouraged it to draw him in, and I assume to get some great footage for the eventual case against him. Um, and now that all that has come to fruition, she is going to kill him for, the publicity, and also and maybe to like punish him for the tendencies that he had. So she essentially is going to say that like Daniel attacked her, tried to rape her. She found the knife and, was able to kill him, is what it seems like her plan is going to be. And in order to do that, she kind of gets on top of him. She like kisses him, I assume to like make sure their DNA is on. And then she also, in a very painful looking scene, cuts off his penis. And after that has happened, she then kills him. She slits his throat. And there is a lot more exposition during this. It's actually kind of a confusing way to shoot this, and because it'll like cut between later parts of this scene and earlier parts. So she'll kind of already have blood on her face during one part after the result of her cutting off his penis and getting blood on her hand. And then it'll go back to like the start where she's explaining to Daniel what's going to happen, and then it'll cut again. I was actually very confused about this. My thought was that initially maybe we are seeing the resulting movie interpretation of what happened and then the real life thing, and eventually they coalesce into when Daniel is killed. But I talked to Stuart Brennan, who played Daniel in, was involved in the movie, and he said that that is actually them just kind of rearranging the scenes to kind of give it kind of more of an exciting ending rather than have it be like build up to the cutting scene and then kind of fall off a cliff. The team did that to allow for a few more ups and downs during the overall ending. So after Rose kind of does this deed, she cuts off his penis and kills him. She then like starts pretending to cry as the elevator goes down. And as the elevator goes down, she like starts to cry. She starts to like pretend to cry. She'd already called the police about how she was being attacked, and so she's kind of getting ready for that response. And the idea, I think, is when the doors open, she's going to be crying, and they're going to like see her and think everything's okay. My only concern with this is like I don't really know how this is going to actually look, because she didn't stage the scene very well, because when the police come in, Daniel is tied up with duct tape and he has duct tape residue on his mouth, which is not going to be a great look if she's going to say that he attacked her. Um, he's also going to have his penis cut off, which I guess you could probably explain if she got the knife and like cut him. But then the fact that like she slit his throat seems like that is not going to be the right situation that she's looking for. She's going to try to say he attacked her and then she fought back. The police are going to walk in and see like someone tied up with what used to be duct tape on their mouth, their penis cut off, and their throat slashed. I don't really think that that story is going to fly. And then you also get the idea that this is not going to happen, because at the very end, when the movie's painting over the elevator and you see all the things, you find out that there is a phone there. Daniel had previously said like, I don't have a phone. But you see that the phone is recording. It looks like it's recording audio. So it's possible that perhaps he was trying to record this at the start because he was going to attack Rose, and he wanted to like remember it, have that audio footage. Now Daniel's a video person, so I imagine if it was going to do it, I would assume he would have set up some sort of secret video. But that's not what we get. We get a phone with some audio. So I don't think this is going to work out for Rose. I think that her plan is probably going to backfire, and I don't really know what's going to happen because Daniel was creepy, but it doesn't seem like he was a murderer, and Rose is definitely a murderer after what we've seen. So I don't think it's going to end well for either of them, but that is also kind of the interesting aspect of this film. The fact that they play with who has the power throughout, and then at the end kind of really flip it versus what you would normally expect. So overall, I enjoyed it. I didn't think the ending kind of worked perfectly, and I didn't love some of the things that happened to get there, but overall I thought it was a wonderfully written film. I really liked the characters, and I really loved the first about hour of the movie. I was just enjoying the entire time. So that is Stalker. It's coming to theaters and on demand on March 31st 2023, so check it out in theaters or in the comfort of your own home. You can choose whichever way you're more comfortable with. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. And also check out my interview with Stuart Brennan if you want to learn more about the film. It was a wonderful conversation. He had a lot of great insights into how this film was made. and in his process in creating Daniel, because it's actually a very fascinating one. So check that out. And if you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.